Somewhere smack dab between Eastern and Western Europe lies a country that is absolutely perfect for bicycling. In September of 2023, my daughters and I took off on a self-guided bicycle trip through the Republic of Slovenia. In this video, I'm going to talk about what our experience was like, what our route was like, the highlights, the lowlights, things that you might be able to expect, and also we used a tour operator this time, and that was a little different. I've never done that before, and so I'd like to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of deciding to go with a tour operator instead of creating our own self-contained route. But first, if you do like this video, or if you like any of the other videos that we've done and you haven't done so already, do us a solid and go ahead and crush that subscriber button or like or comment. We would really appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, let's get on with it. Cycling in Slovenia, starting with the top-down view of the country itself. Slovenia is a small country in Central Europe. At just under 8,000 square miles, it's about the size of New Jersey, but something like a quarter of the population. Its geographical position in the world means it has been the crossroads of Roman, German, and Slavic cultures. It's bordered by Italy, Croatia, Hungary, Austria, and the Adriatic Sea. Slovenia is a Slavic country, and Slovene is the official language. But by some metrics, Slovenians are more likely to speak multiple languages than probably any other country in all of Europe. We certainly found that speaking English was never a problem. Everybody seemed to be very, very fluent. The culture has been part of and has been shaped by the Roman Empire, the Byzantines, the Carolingians, the Holy Roman Empire, the Republic of Venice, the Napoleonic Empire, the Austro-Hungarians, the Nazis in World War II, Yugoslavia, and finally, in 1991, it became a free state. As recently as World War II, over 91% of Slovenians considered themselves Catholic, but it's now much more secularized. Still, remnants of Slovenia's religious background are everywhere in the country. Geographically, it's where four regions meet: the Alps, the Dinarides, which is the mountain range reaching down the Adriatic coast of the Balkan Peninsula, the Hungarian Plain to the east, and the Mediterranean. In case you were wondering what gives the country so much variety in such a relatively small space. Next to Finland and Sweden, it's the most densely forested nation in Europe. Our cycling route took us on a meandering path through this amazing, diverse geography. We flew into Julianna Airport, which is really closer to the town of Kranj, and from there we took a bus to Lake Bled, quite possibly the most recognized tourist site in the country, and for good reason. From there, our tour operator had us take a shuttle up to a pass in the Julian Alps, from which we rode through the spectacular Triglav National Park, a region not only of incredible scenery, but also of old-world culture. After a night in Bohinj Bistrica, we rode on through the village of Sorica and then down to the medieval village of Škofja Loka. The 2 days we spent riding through this region was an absolute highlight of our entire journey, with spectacular alpine scenery at every turn. Leaving Škofja Loka, we headed to nearby Ljubljana, Slovenia's capital, but with less than 300,000 people, one of Europe's smallest. We explored the lovely city center before heading west across the Ljubljana Marsh, an ancient lakebed and home to a treasure trove of prehistoric human artifacts, including the world's oldest discovered wooden wheel. We explored a canyon known as Iški Vinkar, and then followed a serpentine path through Vernica, Postojna, across a finger of the Dinaride Alps, through the lovely towns of Branik and Divača, across a region known as the Karst Plateau, and down to the Adriatic Sea and into the sunny Mediterranean climate. The only night in Italy we spent was in the town of Muggia. From there we followed the coastline southward. Our route along the Adriatic was absolutely exceptional, and along a beautiful and exceptionally well-maintained rail trail with amazing views of the sea. At the end of our journey was the lovely village of Piran, a spectacular end of the trip. For a relatively shorter cycling tour, this route was without a doubt exquisite. Mountains, plains, forests, ocean. From sweeping mountain meadows to elegant and energetic city vibes, this tour packed a lot into 9 short days of riding. 9 days and 250 miles. No doubt cycling is huge here in Slovenia, but those of you who are used to the excellent cycling infrastructure in Western Europe might be disappointed to find few off-road cycling paths, and to be honest, not that many roads with good shoulders. However, we found the drivers to be very courteous and the conditions consistently safe. In the higher Alps, the roads were in extremely rough shape, which kept our speed down.
Rough road here. All the way down, actually.
But with scenery like this, who wouldn't want to slow down, at least a little? Of course, we all brought home something different from this trip. On our last afternoon, the day before we flew home, we asked each other what we got out of the trip.
So back when I was guiding for a wilderness therapy company, I was guiding backpacking trips, and we'd finish up each day talking to the participants about the highlights and the challenges of the day. And we had this cheesy little game that we'd call Rose, Bud, Thorn. So you'd go around and share the rose, the bud, and the thorn. And the rose is like your highlight of the day, and your thorn is your challenge of the day, or bud is something that you're looking forward to, like growing from out of that. Yeah, that's Rose, Bud, Thorn.
So what's your rose of the whole Slovenia trip?
I really liked biking through like the Alpine areas. That was really cool. Whee! And I also really enjoyed Piran. That was really beautiful. Yeah. And I think just staying put for a couple of days felt really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was nice. What's your thorn?
Biking into Julianna kind of sucked. And then there was like 10 minutes of high wind biking on a busy highway getting into Muggia. Yeah. And that sucked.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah.
And then my bud.
Your bud.
Hey, bud.
I'm excited to do more bike trips back at home in California when I get back.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that I'm in semi-decent shape.
How about you, Bailey?
I would say my rose is, in summary, the clear water everywhere.
Yeah.
So that would include the clear water at Ishki-Vintgar, the clear water here, so many of the places where the water was just so clear and beautiful. And that also includes the super clear water in the sea in Piran. Woke up and went swimming before dawn this morning in the sea.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So the clear water. The thorn would be all of the mosquito bites that I have. So this is me taping up all of my mosquito bites so that I don't itch them. So
they've been insane the last couple days.
The thorn is just the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So that's why I brought my tape and anti-itch cream.
Yeah.
But the bud, I would say, is that I'm really excited to go around and share the new phrases that I've learned in other languages. I think I've learned a lot of really useful phrases in Slovenian.
Yeah.
First and foremost, Dobrodošli v mojem sladoled Yamagrad, which of course means welcome to my ice cream cave castle.
Yeah.
And Kelsey is, we haven't been in Czech Republic, but Kelsey taught me this one, which is Strčprskrskirk, which means stick a finger down your throat, and it just happens to be a phrase in Czech that involves no vowels. So my bud is learning some new useless phrases in other languages.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so the rose. What's the rose for the trip? Boy, there were so many roses. So I'm going to default and say the variety, being able to go from those really cool huts up in the Julian Alps, down through the Alps, and every day seemed very, very different until we reached Piran. It just seemed like every day had something very, very special about it. The thorns, I felt like this being a self-guided tour through an operator, I will probably never do that again. We had reasons for doing that, but I think it would have made probably just as much sense to take our bikes to the bike stores and have them broken down and put on a plane. Working with the operator was kind of a hassle. We kept having issues with that. And not having the freedom of just doing your own thing and working at your own pace. And the bud is, I hope we can do a lot more bike tours together. as a family, even if it's just little ones like 2-day things or something close to where you guys live or that kind of thing. But it's so nice to be able to do these little trips with everybody. I hope this isn't the last one for a while, but I hope we have a whole bunch more. I'd love to see that. So there you go.
We definitely had some issues with this tour and the outfit that put it together. For one thing, if you've watched many of Julianna's and my bike tours, you know that we generally like to ship our bikes, put them back together, and ride our own bikes on these tours. But because of the short time frame on this tour, my daughters are working gals after all, we felt that a self-guided tour and renting bikes would maximize our time riding and make the most of the short time that we had on this trip, and eliminate the time and hassle of choosing our accommodations for the night. Also, having our luggage transferred meant we could ride lighter and enjoy our time a little bit more. All sounds good, right? But I particularly had real issues with my rental bike. A bike that fits you is crucial to having a great time on a bike tour. That's why breaking down and shipping your own bike is worth the trouble. But when you just don't have a lot of time, well, it's a lot of time lost. I genuinely missed having my own bike. But all things considered, I think we made the right call on the rental bikes. For what it's worth, I was the only one who was really complaining. As far as the route that the tour operator chose, it was exceptional. It would be hard to build a better route through this country, especially sight unseen. It is true that sometimes they provided some confusing and conflicting information. But overall, we stayed in nice towns, mostly in decent hotels, and had a lot of good suggestions for excursions like Perjamagrad and Ishki-Venkar. Out of the way, but outstanding. From a routing standpoint, the tour operator gets an A. Having our luggage sagged was a real treat for obvious reasons. But on a couple of occasions, it would have been really nice to have it with us, or at least to have it arrive in time for us to get to the hotel. Sometimes it arrived late. I guess that's a first world problem, but it can be kind of stressful to not know where your stuff is at the end of the day. Also, call me crazy, but when I'm touring, I like the comfort of having all my stuff with me. With all of its advantages, having our stuff sagged was not really to my taste. The schedule that they set up for us was reasonable, but with a very rainy week, we ended up riding in the rain more often than I typically would have. The thing about going with this kind of setup is, you're riding when they tell you to ride, and that's not always a good thing. Then there's the cost. We went with an outfit known as the Natural Adventure. It's certainly not one of the more expensive tour operators out there, which might explain the ill-fitting bike and the other issues. We spent about $1,500 a piece for the bike rental, for the bike tour, for the hotels. That's $150 a day per person, which is, I think, very reasonable. By comparison, someone like Trek Travel, they would charge $4,500 a piece, including a much, much better bike rental, no doubt. But that's just for 5 nights. That's $900 a day per person. Backroads charges $5,500 to $6,000 for a similar tour. That's $1,200 a day per person. Wow. So for us it was comparatively inexpensive. But how does it compare to doing it yourself? You have to include in your comparison the cost of putting your bike on a plane for an 11-day bike tour, and the time to put it all back together. And hotels. No doubt we could have found our own hotels along the way and probably saved a little bit of money there. So all told, 10 nights of hotels and shipping your bike, I'd say that'd probably average about $1,000 per person-ish. So not a huge savings, and obviously a lot less hassle. And since it's a short tour, the costs just don't add up that fast. A month-long tour would make this approach cost prohibitive. But on a little trip like this, it's a bit of a bargain, especially if we had just gotten better bikes. Look, in the end, it was an incredible time, and that's what it's all about. And if I can ever convince my daughters or anyone else to take one of these short trips with me, I'd do it in a heartbeat, but I would go with the tour operator again. I would do a lot more due diligence on the bikes, but I think I'd go with the tour operator again. With a few minor exceptions, it was a perfect trip. Slovenia was an absolutely amazing place to ride. I can't begin to tell you how much we enjoyed this amazing country. And even though we encountered a lot of weather on this trip, it was full of incredible memories, incredible moments, and of course, great bonding. If you're thinking about the next place you want to go for a bicycling vacation, get Slovenia up there on that list. It is spectacular. And if you want to get a slightly deeper dive into what riding through Slovenia is like, check out our series on cycling in Slovenia if you haven't already. It'll definitely give you a good sense of what to expect, and hopefully entertain you along the way. Until then, nos videnje in srečno pot.